Okay, the first thing I need you all to do is that your web cameras need to be on. Web cameras on and your microphones off. Right? There are a couple of reasons why we need your web cameras to be on. Number one, your web cameras to be on so that we can verify your identity. Okay, there are some like privacy and security issues associated with the Zoom app. We want to make sure that everybody that is here with us are our students or are here for a trial lesson, and they are actually students and not some random strangers. So I need your cameras to be on. Okay, if you don't have a web camera, right, you can private message me and let me know what is the situation that you're facing. But if you have a web camera, please don't be shy. You come for lesson, you also never shy. Right, it's going to be like 30 days of this in school and at home. I don't want to see black screen for the next 1 whole month. It's damn boring. And don't let me see black screens. Let me see your face. Let me see that you're there. Okay? Right, if you can, and we will always do standardized things at the start of each lesson. Number one, I will always do a sound check. If you can hear me clearly, use the chat box, say yes. If you can see my face, use the chat box, say yes. Okay, right, for the best learning experience, always download the Zoom app as opposed to using the browser link. Alright, always use the Zoom app as opposed to using the browser link. Okay, just give me a minute. I'm going to lock in Zoom on my iPad so that I can make annotations on the slides. I hope everybody is doing fine. Okay, it's going to be a very boring 1 month. You're going to be stuck at home. I'm going to be stuck at home. Everybody is going to be stuck at home. Okay, but let's make the best out of it, okay? Right? We're going to try to make our learning as positive as we can, bearing in mind that the ministry has already announced that there will be no change in the A-level dates. There's no postponement of the A-level dates. Heck, they don't even intend to delay the June holidays. You heard the ministerial statement, right? They don't even intend to delay the June holidays, so there is no likelihood that they will postpone the A-levels. So A-levels are going as per usual. We need to make sure that as much as we can, our learning can be as usual as possible, right? Okay, right, so let's go ahead and start today's class. Alright, so web cameras on, microphones off, everybody is there, so let's go ahead and start. Stop video. Okay, let me share with you my screen. Share screen. Okay, right, so there we go. Okay, right, so we are covering monetary policy today, and monetary policy will be part of the macroeconomic policies that we are going through this month. So we have done exchange rate policy. Today we are doing monetary policy. Next week we'll probably be doing fiscal policy, and the week after will be supply side policy. Right, so the standard structure of our lessons moving forward, I think you should be quite familiar with already. If it's a content lesson, I will always give you a break at the halfway point of the lesson. I'll give you a short break, 5-minute break. Okay, and at the end of the lesson, I'll always save about 15 minutes to 20 minutes, okay, to give you a Q&A session so that you can turn on your microphones and turn everything on and you can ask questions. Okay, right, so let's start first with the lesson on monetary policy and explain to you what exactly is monetary policy. Now, when we talk about monetary policy, okay, monetary policy here means money supply. Okay, monetary policy, right, means that you want to change money supply in order to change interest rate. Okay, you change money supply to change interest rate in order to change AD. Okay, that is what monetary policy is about. And monetary policy is conducted by the central bank of a country. Okay, what is the central bank of a country? For United States, your central bank will be Federal For European Union, the central bank will be European Central Bank. For Japan, the central bank will be Bank of Japan, and for Singapore, the central bank will be Monetary Authority of Singapore. Okay. Okay, so what are your aims of monetary policy? So let's draw this out. Now, expansionary monetary policy, the purpose is to increase AD, whereas contractionary monetary policy, the purpose is to cut AD. Why? Okay. Okay, your purpose of carrying out expansionary monetary policy is to increase AD, because when you increase AD, your real national income will increase from Y0 to Y1. When your real national income increase from Y0 to Y1, you have economic growth. Okay, when you move closer to the full employment level YF, okay, Y1 is nearer to YF than Y0 is, you have lower unemployment as well. Whereas the purpose of contractionary monetary policy is to cut AD. Why is it that you want to cut AD? You want to cut AD because when you cut AD from AD0 to AD1, if this is AD0, sorry, if this is AD, if this is AD0 and this is AD1, okay, then when your AD shift from AD0 to AD1, then your prices will fall from P0 to P1. So there will be a fall in prices. So your purpose of cutting AD is because you want to address the problem of inflation. And when your real national income fall from Y0 to Y1, okay, people have less disposable income. When they have less disposable income, they cut back on buying goods and services, which includes imported goods. When people spend less on imported goods, your import expenditure falls, then your current account actually improves. Okay, so that is one reason why you would actually carry out contractionary monetary policy. So expansionary monetary policy, the purpose is to increase AD. Contractionary monetary policy, the purpose is to cut AD. Okay? So let's go on. Okay, how does monetary policy work? Monetary policy works through this mechanism called the open market operations. Now there are various ways that central banks carry out open market operations. We will only go through the main way today, which is already very complicated to understand. So changing reserve requirements and changing discount rate, you can go back and read on your own. Not go back, you're already at home. You can go and read on your own. Okay, right, so that one you can self-study. Those are not so important. The one that we're going to spend time going through today is how the central bank can carry out open market operations by buying and selling of government bonds. Okay, now so I would like all of you to make sure that you follow me through this lesson and make sure that you understand exactly what the heck I am talking about right now. Okay, this is important. Now first, before I go on to explain this diagram, I want to explain to you what is a government bond. Okay, let me explain to you what is a government bond. Okay, let me first explain to you what exactly a bond even is about. Okay, so a bond will be like a piece of paper. Okay, so if this piece of paper is issued by the government, it's called a government bond. If this piece of paper is issued by a company, is called a corporate bond. What is a bond? Okay, if I issue a bond, okay, I will say that, okay, this is a 5-year bond. What is a 5-year bond? So if I issue a bond that is 5 years and is $10 million, that means I want to sell this piece of paper for $5 million. So this will be a $5 million bond that has an expiry date or maturity period of 5 years. So anybody who holds on to this bond, I have an obligation to pay this person an interest rate every year. So let's say if the government issue this bond, the government is promising, okay, that anybody who buys this bond, okay, the government will pay this person who is holding on to this bond an interest every year. Say for example 3%. If this bond has an interest rate of 3%, that means whatever value of this bond, the government will pay you 3% every year. Okay, and then at the end of the bond period, the government will buy back this bond from you at the price that you paid for. But what do you earn? You earn the interest every year. So for as long as you're holding on to this bond, every year you get paid an interest for holding on to this bond. Okay, does everybody get the idea of what a bond is? You can nod your head or you can shake your head, I can see. Right? So I repeat one more time. If the government issues a government bond, the government is promising, so if the government issue this bond and want to sell to you, is saying that, hey, you want to buy this piece of paper from me? If you want to buy this piece of paper from me, you pay me money now. You give me money, I give you paper. Then as long as you hold on to this paper, I must pay you an interest every year. Then when the paper matures in 5 years time or 10 years time, I will buy back this bond from you at the purchase price. That is the concept of what is called a bond. Okay? Right, so that is the meaning of a bond. So now that you understand the concept of a bond, let's explain how contractionary monetary policy actually works. Okay? So follow me on this very carefully, okay? Follow me on this. Okay, contractionary monetary policy works this way. It works by the government issuing and selling government bonds. Okay? Because government bonds are usually in $1 million denominations. So who usually buys government bonds are your commercial banks, financial institutions, or super bloody rich people. No, not common folks like me and you. Common folks like me and you, we don't buy government bonds. We don't have enough money to buy government bonds. Okay? So very rich people, financial institutions, banks, commercial banks, they are the one that buy government bonds. Okay? So the central bank, I'm going to denote the central bank in blue, okay? So that you can see. So this is the central bank in blue color here, central bank, okay? Central bank, blue color here, blue color, this is central bank. Okay, right, so the central bank will sell government bonds. Okay, so government bonds I put in green, okay, for you to see. So this is a government bond. This is a government bond. Okay, so that's the government bond. So the central bank will issue government bond and say, hey, Lelong, who want to buy government bonds from me? I'm issuing some new 10-year, 5-year government bond at $10 million per piece. Who want to buy these government bonds from me? So the central bank will say, come, please buy government bonds from me. So they will sell government bonds to who? To commercial banks, to financial institutions, to very rich people. So these very rich people, these commercial banks and these financial institutions, what will they hand over? What will they hand over to the central bank? They will hand over a lot of money for these government bonds. Okay? Then this central bank, they will take this money and then they will keep the money, okay, and it will not circulate in the economy anymore. So what happens to the amount of loanable funds available? Okay, the central banks, the commercial banks will say, the commercial banks will be like Citibank, Bank of America. They will say, oh, now I got less money available. I got not so much money already because all my money I passed to the central bank because I bought this bond. So the commercial banks start to have less money. So when the commercial banks start to have less money, they have less loanable funds. If they have less loanable funds, what will they do? So many people want to borrow money, but there's now less loanable funds available to lend out. So what will the commercial banks do? They will increase interest rates. So your interest rates, okay, your interest rate will go up. Your interest rate will go up. Are you okay so far? So they do this when the economy is doing very well. They will do this when the economy is doing very well. Okay, and they want to curb inflation, so they want to raise interest rates to curb inflation. Okay, if the economy is not doing well, like now, if the economy sucks, okay, the economy is not doing well, then what will the central bank do? Okay, the central bank, instead of selling government bonds, they will say, okay, I'm going to take a truck of money, I'm going to take so much money, okay, I'm going to do this. Okay, what am I going to do? I'm going to take all this crazy amount of money. Okay, I'm going to take all this crazy amount of money. Okay, here, we're going to take all this money. Okay, and then we are going to the market. We're going to ask the commercial banks, we're going to ask the rich people, we're going to ask everyone, hey, remember those government bonds I sold you? I know they have not matured yet, but I'm willing to buy back these bonds at a good price from you. Any of you want to sell back to me? And then these people will say, okay, that's a good deal. I'm going to sell it to you. So the central bank take this money to pass to these commercial banks, these financial institutions, who will return these government bonds to the bank, to the central bank, and then the central bank will then destroy. They will destroy these government bonds. They will cease to exist. Okay, but what happens to these financial institutions now? Okay, they have now a lot of money. So like money. They have now a lot of money because the central bank just passed a lot of money to them. Okay, so what they're gonna do? Not gonna leave the money doing nothing, ma. So what they're gonna do? They are going to lend this money out, but to encourage people to borrow money from them, they are going to cut interest rates. Okay, this is the concept of open market operations through the buying and selling of government bonds in order to influence interest rates. Are you all okay? You all understand the concept of buying and selling government bonds now? Are you okay? Good. Okay, let's move on. I'm gonna erase this. Okay, now I'm gonna do some. I guess I'm gonna do some drawing. Okay, I'm gonna explain to you the step-by-step process of how contractionary monetary policy works. Okay, so I'm gonna do some drawing with you. Okay, how does contractionary monetary policy work? I'm gonna do some drawing. Means I'm gonna draw some diagrams also. How does contractionary monetary policy work? First of all, contractionary means cut. Cut what? Monetary means money supply. Contractionary monetary means cut money supply. When I cut money supply, okay, then what is going to happen is that my interest rate is going to go up. Okay, when my interest rate go up, my consumption is going to fall. My investment is going to fall. Okay, then my AD, sorry, I'm going to do this again. So my AD will actually fall. Okay, then my general price level will also fall. Okay, so this is the steps to which how contractionary monetary policy works. Okay, but we are going to put in diagrams to explain this to you. Okay, why does a cut in money supply increases interest rates? Okay, for this, okay, I have a diagram to show you for this. So I'm going to input here diagram number 1. Okay, so over here I have price of money. Here I have quantity of money. Okay, and then I have now this curve, I call it the Okay, this curve I call the liquidity preference curve. Liquidity preference is just a more fanciful name of saying demand for money. Okay, now so demand for money and then supply of money is money supply. So demand for money, and then here we have supply for money. So if my money supply falls from MS0 to MS1, okay, what you will observe is that your interest rate will increase from IR0 to IR1. So when your money supply fall, your interest rate go up. Your price of money is actually your price of money is actually your interest rates. Okay, another way of saying price of money is basically interest rates. Okay, so this is the first diagram that I will ask you to draw. So whatever I'm drawing, make sure you also are drawing and you can see what I'm doing. Okay, next. When interest rate go up, consumption will fall because higher interest rate means that people are less likely to take loans to buy large ticket items like cars. Less people will spend money on their credit card and they prefer to save rather than to spend. So consumption will fall. Okay, investment will fall because it is a known fact that at higher interest rates, less investments are profitable. But we actually have a diagram that we can use to draw this. Okay, so I'm introducing to you diagram number 2 over here. Okay, what is diagram number 2? Diagram number 2, the name of this diagram is called the marginal efficiency of investment. So marginal efficiency of investment. The marginal efficiency of investment curve is just a downward sloping curve that indicates the relationship between interest rates and volume of investments. Okay, so if your interest rates go up from IR0 to IR1, okay, then what you're going to observe is your investment will fall from I0 to I1. Okay, so that is the second diagram that we need to draw. The third diagram is that when your AD falls, okay, your general price level will fall. So this is the third diagram. So here's the third diagram. Okay, your third diagram is general price level and real national income. So when your AD curve shifts from AD0, when your AD curve shifts from AD0 to AD1, okay, you will find that your general price level will fall, which reduces inflation. So these are the diagrams that you need to be able to draw to explain the whole process of contractionary monetary policy. Okay, so that is what you need to be able to draw. If you need to take a picture of this, please go ahead and do so. Okay. The third graph is your ADAS diagram, your regular ADAS diagram. Okay, right. Let's continue with our next part. Okay, I'm gonna erase this and we'll move on to the next part. Okay, next, expansionary monetary policy. So now let's do the same thing. Okay, expansionary monetary policy. We want to expansionary means increase what? Increase money supply. Okay, so when you increase money supply, what happens is that your interest rate will fall. When interest rate fall, then your consumption, your investment will rise. Okay, then your AD will increase. Then this results in an increase in real national income, which will bring about higher economic growth. So this is the steps that we will talk about for expansionary monetary policy. So again, let's draw some diagrams. It's the reverse, it's just everything in reverse. Okay, so let's start first with diagram number 1. Diagram number 1. This is quantity of money, and this is interest rates. Okay, so when we have an increase in money supply from MS0 to MS1, okay, your interest rate will actually fall from IR0 to IR1. Okay, our second diagram is how interest rates affect investments, which we will use the MEI curve. So the MEI curve looks like that. So this is interest rate, this is volume of investments. It's a downward sloping curve. So when your interest rate go down from IR0 to IR1, your investment actually increases from I0 to I1. This is the second diagram. And then the third diagram is when your AD shift to the right, your real national income will correspondingly be affected as well, positively affected. So this is your real national income, this is your general price level, okay, so if your AD0 increases from Y0 to Y1, then you have high economic growth. Now, so this is how we will explain and draw and talk about expansionary monetary policy. Okay, everybody got it? Okay, you need to take a picture, give you a couple of seconds to take a picture if you need to or you want to, before I move on. Hey, if everybody's okay, I'm gonna erase the diagram. We're gonna move on. Okay, whatever we've just explained are the direct impacts, the direct transmission mechanisms of monetary policy. This is a direct transmission mechanism of monetary policy. I'm going to explain to you the indirect transmission mechanisms of monetary policy. Okay, so your monetary policy can also have an impact on exchange rates, and that is what we call the indirect impacts of monetary policy. So how does your interest rate work? How does the interest rate affect your exchange rate? First of all, when I increase interest rate, okay, remember last week we said that it will attract hot money inflow, means more people want to place money in your country because you have more attractive interest rates. So more people will buy your country's currency. So when more people buy your country's currency, demand for your currency increases, which causes your exchange rate to appreciate. But when your exchange rate is stronger, okay, your exports actually become more expensive, while your imports actually become cheaper. So less people buy your exports, while more of your people buy other countries' imports. So demand for exports fall, while your demand for imports rises. So this causes your X minus M to fall, which causes your AD to fall. Okay? Now, if you cut interest rates, okay, it will lead to hot money outflow because people find that your currency sucks. Okay, your interest rate sucks. Nobody want to put money in your country's bank, so they start to sell your country's currency, which increases supply for your exchange rate for your currency. So your exchange rate will depreciate. When your exchange rate is weaker, okay, it makes your country's exports cheaper, but it makes your imports more expensive. So more people buy your exports, but your people buy less imports. So your X minus M will end up rising, which will cause your AD to rise. This is what we call the indirect transmission mechanism of monetary policy. Alright? So I'm going to take some time to explain to you now what are the limitations for using monetary policy in general. Now, first of all, you have to bear in mind that when you use monetary policy, the main thing you are trying to do is you're trying to change interest rate because you think that people will react to interest rate changes. Like if you make interest rates lower, more people will go out and buy cars. If you make interest rate lower, more firms will go and borrow money to invest and start new factories, start new outlets. They will borrow money to do so. Okay. Now, what we are saying here for this limitation, we are saying that is that necessarily true? Okay, inelastic means this. Inelastic means not responsive. Okay, that is what inelastic means. So what happens if consumption and investments are in fact not responsive to interest rate changes? Now, like around the world, like in the US and in the European Union, the central banks have been cutting interest rates aggressively. Okay, what they are trying to do is they're trying to encourage consumers and investors to go out and invest and consume. But with the world on lockdown, I don't think people are rushing out to buy cars. Okay, I don't think people are rushing out to buy cars. With the world on lockdown, I don't think people are going out to start new factories or start new firms. Okay, in other words, even though your interest rates have come down, we don't think that consumers and investors are going to be very excited about these interest rate cuts. Means to say that there are other factors that drive consumption decisions and other factors that drive investment decisions that may not have anything to do with interest rates. In other words, we are saying that you expect monetary policy to drive changes in consumption investment. But what if consumption investments to begin with, they are influenced by a bunch of factors and they are not actually that responsive to interest rate changes? That would make your monetary policy not so effective. Okay, so this is the first limitation. The second limitation is this limitation called liquidity trap. Okay, I'll start off by explaining to you what is the meaning of liquidity trap. Liquidity trap is a situation where a country is experiencing zero interest rates or close to zero interest rates. So we're going to jump slides so that we can go and look at a real world situation here. We're going to jump slides. Okay, so we'll come to this slide. Now I want you to analyze this chart here. This very important chart. Okay, tell me, let's draw a green line over here. Let me draw a green line. Let me draw a green line over here. Oops. Another line. Try again. Okay. So here is before global financial crisis of 2008. Okay, you can make use of the chat box to answer my question. I would like to know, class, what was considered to be the normal interest rates before the global financial crisis? Let's go. Look at the graph and tell me before the global financial crisis, which is before the green line took place. I want to know what kind of interest rates are considered to be normal. What percentage interest rate seems to be the normal interest rate? Okay, it's actually above 5%. So you can see here that it's actually above 5%. So for like at least one whole year worth, your interest rates were above 5%. Okay, so that was considered to be the normal interest rates. Now, from 2008, okay, I'm going to use another color to draw this next line. From 2008 to 2009, okay, you can see that this is clearly like within a year. Okay, what did the Federal Reserve do within 1 year to interest rates? What did they do to interest rates within 1 year? So they carried out a series of expansionary monetary policy, aka cut interest rates. So they cut. So they cut until interest rates reached around zero. Okay, so sometime in 2009, interest rates already reached zero. Okay, sometimes in 2009, interest rates already reached zero. Alright, so when interest rates reach zero, we say that the economy is experiencing a liquidity trap. Okay, why is there a liquidity trap? Okay, I'm gonna take some time to explain this to you. Let's run through how expansionary monetary policy works again. Let's run through how expansionary monetary policy works. Okay, expansionary monetary policy works this way. First, I increase money supply. Okay, then when I increase money supply, what happens to interest rates? I'll expect interest rate to fall. Okay, then when interest rate fall, it actually causes your consumption to and investment to increase. Okay, so when consumption and investment increase, then my AD will increase. Then my real national income will increase. Okay, this then brings about two things. One, higher economic growth, and two, lower unemployment rate. Okay, that is how expansionary monetary policy works, isn't it? Now, the problem with expansionary monetary policy is that if interest rates are already zero, then you have a mega roadblock here. Okay, let me show you how the mega roadblock works. Okay, the mega roadblock works here. If your interest rates are already zero, then you can't possibly cut interest rates anymore. If your interest rates are already zero, then you can't cut interest rate anymore. So if you can't cut interest rates anymore, then this whole part here becomes a no-go. It doesn't work anymore. It doesn't move because you cannot start here already. Your interest rate's already zero. Zero means you cannot do anything to it already. You cannot do anything to it already. So your expansionary monetary policy doesn't work anymore. Okay, so this is what we call a liquidity trap. Okay, liquidity trap makes your expansionary monetary policy worthless because you can't cut interest rates any further. If you can't cut interest rates any further, then your monetary policy stops working, and that is what we call a liquidity trap. Okay, so if you are wondering, can interest rates be negative? Okay, if you're wondering about this concept of negative interest rates, if you read it anywhere or your teachers told you about negative interest rates, I suggest you forget it. Okay, your understanding of negative interest rate is wrong. So I'm going to tell you why negative interest rates doesn't exist for you and me. Okay, let me explain to you why negative interest rate doesn't exist for you and me. Okay, do you guys have $100? Do you have like $100 in savings at least? You all have Okay, I'm going to tell you this. I think I should be reliable enough for me to ask you for a hypothetical loan of $100. So if I ask each and every one of you to lend me $100, I say, hey, you guys, you got $100, right? Lend me $100. Okay, and then I say this. You lend me $100 and I will pay you every month a negative interest rate of 1%. Will you take the deal? I repeat, you lend me $100. I pay you a negative interest rate of 1%. Negative 1%. Okay, I pay you interest rate of negative 1%. Do you know what the heck that means? Come, if you know what the heck that means, then reply to me in the chat box. Correct. You have to pay me every month. So for as long as I don't return you money, right? You must pay me $1 every month. For holding on to your money, you must pay me $1 every month. Does that make sense to you? I borrow money from you and you pay me. Oh, no, it doesn't make sense. Negative interest rate is absurd. It doesn't exist. So if you ever read about negative interest rates in other countries like European Union, let me explain to you. So pay attention. Now, okay, hey, this is central bank, and this is your commercial bank. Okay, actually your central bank and your commercial bank, sometimes they have a relationship. What kind of relationship? Sometimes your commercial bank will say that, hey, central bank, I've got some cash that I want to put with you. Can you offer me some interest rate? So the central bank will say, okay, no problem, I give you. Okay, you give me money, I give you some interest rates. So I give you like a crappy interest rate like 0.1%. I give you some interest rate for putting money with me. So if you got really spare cash, you really don't know what to do with it, you can put with me, the central bank. I will give you a tiny interest rate of 0.1%. Okay, so that is what commercial banks can do with central banks in many countries. Okay, let's say the economy has gone into a crisis. And the central bank wants the commercial banks to go and help people. How to help people? Go and lend them money. Like what is happening now around the world. Okay, central banks are telling commercial banks around the world, hey, bloody hell, whatever money you have, go and lend it to people. Go and throw money at people, throw at their face. Go and lend money out. Okay, so if the commercial bank say, hey, can I put some money with the central bank? Can I put some money with you? The central bank will say, screw you. Okay, I don't want you to put any money with me. In fact, if you take any money, you put money with me, I'm going to charge you for it. I'm going to charge you for storing money with me. Okay, so for every $1 million you put with me, I'm going to charge you a negative 1% interest rates. Okay, so what is it serving to do? Is to force the commercial banks to take back money from the central bank and then go and lend it out. So that is the concept of how negative interest rates exist. Of course, negative interest rate doesn't exist for common folks like me and you. Okay, that would be too good to be true. Okay, so negative interest rate doesn't work in reality. Negative interest rate is between the central bank and the commercial bank. Okay, so if you ever read about central bank, read about negative interest rate, understand that that's a dealing between the central bank and commercial bank, nothing to do with us. Are you okay? Any questions? Okay, now next I'm going to erase this and go back to my previous slides and finish up on the limitations of monetary policy. Okay, the other limitations, very straightforward. I'm not going to spend too much time covering. Small multiplier is a standard limitation of any demand management policy. Like if you increase AD, real national income will increase a lot if you have a large multiplier. But if you have a small multiplier, like Singapore, right, then an increase in AD will lead to only a small multiplier increase in real national income, which makes demand management policy less effective for countries with a small multiplier. Okay, now let's talk about time lag for monetary policy versus the time lag for fiscal policy. Now, in many countries, fiscal policy has a severe time lag because it takes time to plan government policies, and it takes time to discuss, and it takes time to debate, and it takes time to write reports. So fiscal policy may have a very long implementation lag. Monetary policy has no implementation lag. Monetary policy, if you want to implement, is instant. If the central bank say, I want to change interest rate today, they can change today. They want to change interest rate tomorrow, they can change tomorrow, no problem. There is zero implementation lag for monetary policy because you know why? The central bank is independent of the government. They are allowed to make their own decisions without intervention from the government. Okay, so your central bank has no implementation lag. So what the heck is this transmission lag that you are seeing here? Transmission lag is this. Okay, so imagine if you change interest rate, you lower interest rate today. Some people see, wow, interest rate so low, I want to make use of this low interest rate to go and buy a car. Right, but the fella, right, doesn't just go today and go and buy a car. Doesn't work that way. You want to buy a car, you take time to think about it. You go and see, you go and research SG Car Mark, see, what car nice. Then you go down to the showroom, you go and test drive. Then you test drive finish already, you ask your wife, you ask your kids, okay or not, nice or not. Then you decide on color. So all these things take time. So when you want to make a major consumption decision, you take time. Hey, if you want to plan a business expansion, it's not today your interest rate lower, tomorrow you go out and start a new factory. New business ventures need time to plan. So in other words, consumers and investors, they take time to respond to interest rate changes. That is what we call transmission lag. Okay? Now, what are the trade-offs of expansionary monetary policy and trade-off of contractionary monetary policy? This is easy. I just draw one diagram to show you, then you should be able to okay, sorry. The arrow is too big. Okay, I'm going to show you. Okay, now, so if we carry out expansionary monetary policy, what are we trying to do? We are trying to increase AD from AD0 to AD1. Okay, if we are trying to increase AD from AD0 to AD1, okay, what we are trying to do is to increase real national income from Y0 to Y1, which increases economic growth. But what is the downside to this is that you are going to experience demand pull inflation from P0 to P1, so your inflation goes up. So expansionary monetary policy causes inflation. Now, expansionary monetary policy also causes real national income to go up. When your real national income goes up, okay, then people have more disposable income, they buy more goods and services, so your imported goods spending go up, your import expenditure go up. If your import expenditure go up, then your balance of payment worsens. Okay, when you carry out contractionary monetary policy, what are you trying to do? You are trying to when you carry out contractionary monetary policy, you are trying to cut AD. Why are you trying to cut AD? You are trying to bring down inflation. But when you bring down inflation, okay, you also cause your real national income to fall. When real national income falls, okay, your economic growth is lower. Okay, your economic growth is lower. Okay, and then your unemployment is also higher because you're moving away from the full employment level. So these are the trade-offs of carrying out your various forms of monetary policy. Okay, let's move on. Now, I'm going to explain one last concept before we take a 5-minute break. So I'm going to explain to you the trilemma of monetary policy. Before I explain to you the trilemma of monetary policy, to help you better understand the concept of trilemma, I shall explain to you the trilemma of life. Okay? So, what is the trilemma of life? The trilemma of life was taught to me by a student in my first year of teaching tuition, which was in 2007. Okay, so a student was explaining to me about her conception of the trilemma of life, that in life, you can choose between time, money, and energy. Okay, but she said that at any point of your life, you can only choose 2 out of 3. You can never have all 3. Okay, say this is A, this is B, this is C. You can only be on one side of the triangle. And then she was saying that, okay, when you are 18-year-old, okay, what do you have? When you're 18-year-old, okay, you have time and you have energy. Okay, so you have time, you have energy, you would like to go to Europe to backpack for like 2 months, and you are young, you can do it. Okay, you have the time to do it, you are not in a rush to go anywhere, you don't have liabilities, things to do, you don't have kids to deal with, so you have time, you have energy. Okay, but you can't do it because you lack money, so you can't do it. Alright, and then if we are talking about a mid-career adult, so where is a mid-career adult? So a mid-career adult has this. A mid-career adult is here, okay? So mid-career adult has money and he has energy, okay? But because he uses his time in exchange for money, right? So he has no time. Okay, so lastly, if you have worked hard all your life, okay, you will retire with a lot of money and a lot of time in your hands. Okay, so this is a successful retiree. Okay, but if you're 80-year-old, it's very hard for you to go and backpack Europe. If you're 80-year-old, you got money, you want to go and do bungee jump, I think you will have a heart attack in mid-air and die. Okay, so very hard. So what happens if you have none? Then that's just tragic lah. So we are saying basically that this is the maximum that most people can have, any two of the three. Okay, but you can't have all three. Alright, so this is the trilemma of life. Today we are not talking about the trilemma of life. Today we are talking about the trilemma of monetary policy. We are saying that any country in the world can only choose to have two of the following three things. Two of the following three things. You can't have it all. Okay, so we start first with countries like United States. Where is United States? A, B, or C? In the latest news, United States are stealing facial masks from everybody, all other countries. If you read the news. Okay, so United States is at C. That is absolutely correct. So United States, US is here, Japan is here, the Eurozone is here. Okay, so you're at C. They control interest rate and they have free capital flow. Okay, but they give up control over the exchange rates. Can anybody tell me where is China? Can anybody tell me where's China? No, China is not at B. China is actually here at A. China actually control both interest rates and exchange rates. And lastly, okay, where's Singapore? Okay, Singapore is actually here. Singapore is at B. Okay, now let me explain to you why the trilemma applies to this country and how it applies. Let's put ourselves in the shoes of United States. Okay, first, let us explain the concept of free capital flow. The concept of free capital flow means you are a country that allows money to come into your country and money to exit from your country without any form of government intervention. Means you do not place any restrictions on money coming in or money going out. You strictly don't interfere. So anybody who want to buy your currency, anybody want to put money in your country, you allow them to do so, you don't interrupt. That is called having free capital flows. Now, let's look at the United States. If they choose to control interest rate and they have free capital flow, why is it that automatically they give up control over the exchange rates? The answer is very simple. If US chooses to control interest rate, like for example, if they increase interest rate, what will happen? We already know that there will be hot money inflow. Hot money inflow means a lot of people will be buying US dollar, means demand for Sing dollar will increase. That means the exchange rate will appreciate. Now, guess what? If you allow money to come in and out of the country freely, means you are allowing the currency to appreciate freely, means exchange rate will be outside your control because anybody can buy your currency and cause your currency to appreciate, and that is outside of your control. Okay, so the moment you have free capital flow and you control interest rate, you got to prepare to let go of exchange rates. You cannot control exchange rates. Then how come China can control interest rate and exchange rate? So you see, if China control interest rates, okay, by right there should be hot money inflow, okay, which will cause exchange rate to appreciate. By right that should happen. But what does China say? China say, I restrict capital flow. What? Interest rate go up, you want to buy my currency? No, you must ask me for permission. I never give permission. I am restricting capital flow. Your money cannot come in without my permission. So because of that, the hot money flow are controlled. If you can control the hot money flow, then you can control the appreciation of the exchange rate. So you can limit how much you want the currency to appreciate or depreciate. So you automatically retain control over your exchange rate by giving up free capital flow. So in China, capital flows are restricted. And so there goes for Singapore as well. So Singapore, because we don't control interest rate, we can control our exchange rates. Because there won't be hot money inflow and outflow, we can control our exchange rate. That is the reason why we had to give up control over our interest rates, because we want to have control and maintain control over our exchange rates. Okay, right, so at this juncture, I am going to ask you guys to go ahead and take a 5-minute break. Okay, and come back at 4:03 p.m. sharp. Okay, you can turn off your video web cameras at this juncture if you want. Okay, and you can come back and at 4:03 p.m. sharp. Alright, so we will resume at 4:03 p.m. sharp. Okay, I will see you back in 5 minutes. We're going to take a break. Go and walk around, grab a snack, grab a drink, make sure that you are awake and you are energetic when we come back for class in 5 minutes time. Okay? Yeah, it's okay. I'm online. Then go close. Okay, if you are back, turn back on your web camera so I know that you're back and we can continue. So I will resume class once everybody is back. So web cameras on to indicate that you are back so we can resume with class. Okay, turn back on your camera so that I know you're back so that we can resume class. Okay, right, seems like most of you are back, so I'm gonna resume class now. Okay, right, so let's carry on with the next thing, which is to recap why the Singapore uses exchange rates instead of interest rates. We talked about this last week. It's a good time to actually revisit this and understand this again. Okay, first, why doesn't Singapore use interest rate? Is because number one, our consumption is very small, part of our AD, because of our small domestic consumption, because our population is very small. Okay, and our leakages are very high. We import a lot of goods. And then our investment, okay, remember that our investments are interest rates inelastic, which is that they are not responsive to interest rate changes because a lot of them are FDI. FDI already have their own home company backing, right? So they have their own home country backing. They can borrow money from their own home country if they need to. So because of that, consumption and investments are not good things to target, but interest rates, unfortunately, it targets consumption and investment. Okay, so that's why not very good for us to target consumption and investment. Right, so the next point is that because we are a very, very small and open economy, imagine if we live in a world where Singapore influences interest rate. Imagine if Singapore actually carries out interest rate monetary policy, what will happen? What will happen is this. If we increase our interest rate, for example, okay, it will attract a lot of hot money inflow. And if you recall what is hot money inflow again, it is people who are looking for good and attractive interest rates. Can you imagine the whole world is buying Sing dollars because they want to put money in Singapore because of our attractive interest rates? If that happened, people will buy our currency in mass, and Singapore is so small and we don't have that much currency around in circulation. So if the demand for our currency goes up a lot, our exchange rate will shoot up a lot. Okay, it will shoot up a lot, which will cause significant fluctuations in our exchange rate, which is not desirable. Why is significant fluctuation in our exchange rate not desirable? Because if our currency becomes too strong, okay, exports will become very expensive and nobody will buy. If our currency depreciates too much, then our imports are going to become very expensive. So this is not desirable for us. Okay, and because trade is the largest component of our AD, we want to target X minus M. Exchange rate is the only thing that lets us target X minus M because exchange rate affects prices of exports. Exchange rate affects prices of imports. And lastly, A lot of our inflation is caused by external sources, like for example imported inflation. If rice overseas become more expensive, if eggs overseas become more expensive, it will become more expensive in Singapore, which we can mitigate with a stronger Sing dollar. Okay, so if we control our exchange rate, we can make our imported goods cheaper by making the Sing dollar stronger. So this is one reason why we want to maintain control over our Sing dollar. Okay, now finally, I am going to talk to you about what MAS did. Actually, we predicted, obviously, it wasn't that difficult to predict, but we predicted last week what MAS would do on Monday, and everything that we said that MAS would do, MAS did carry out. Okay, so we were correct in our predictions, but I'm going to share with you some article, so just give me a minute. Okay, you can take some time to read this if you want later on. So I'm dropping the link here for you. Okay. So meanwhile, I'm gonna run through with you what MAS did. Okay, MAS did two things. So I'm gonna show you what MAS did. Okay, they did two things. Okay, right. So what is the first thing that MAS did? Okay, the first thing that MAS did was to move from a modest and gradual appreciation, okay, to a 0% appreciation. Okay, so what does that mean? Okay, so I'm gonna show it to you over here. Okay, now if you recall, MAS actually set policy bands, okay, which is two line regulating how much your currency is allowed to appreciate or depreciate. Do you remember that last week? MAS set two policy bands, an upper limit and a lower limit on the where the currency can fluctuate freely within. Okay, in reality, right, when we say that MAS carries out a modest and gradual appreciation, this is what MAS actually does. So the graph actually looks a little bit more like this. Okay, so how does it look like? Actually, it's gently upward sloping like that. Okay, it's not a horizontal slope, it's a gently upward sloping slope. Okay, so when we say that MAS conducts a modest and gradual appreciation, the policy bands are not flat, they are gently upward sloping, so that over time the currency is persuaded or guided towards a modest and gradual appreciation. It doesn't directly intervene in the currency, but it sets the band such that it's gently upward sloping, so that over time progressively the lower limits get pushed up. So if the lower limits get pushed up over time, then your currency will follow a path of modest and gradual appreciation. Okay, so what did MAS do this round? So what MAS basically did was to do this. I'm going to make it as horizontal and as possible, so just give me 1 second. Okay, so now what basically MAS did was to basically make the flats, the slope flat. Okay, now the slope is neutral. Okay, the slope is no longer gently sloping upwards, it's now neutral. So it went from a upward sloping slope to a neutral slope. Is no longer gently sloping upwards, it's a neutral slope. Okay, so this is what MAS did. It moved from modest and gradual appreciation to 0% appreciation. This is what it means. Okay, this is the first thing that MAS did. What is the second thing that the MAS did? Okay, so the second thing that MAS did, okay, was to recenter the policy bands to the current prevailing rate. Okay, so basically MAS, right, they adjusted the policy bands. Okay, I think I'm gonna show it to you so that you know what I'm talking about rather than to keep talking. I'm gonna show it to you. This one only need one graph to show. Okay, so this is sorry, my pencil had some problem, so I just got that hooked up. Okay, so where are we again? So this is quantity and this is price. Okay, so oops. Now, the first thing to actually pay attention to is this. Can you tell me what happened to the demand for the Sing dollar in the last 2 months? We discussed this last lesson. Can you tell me what happened to the demand for Sing dollar in the last 2 months? What happened to the demand for Sing dollar in the last 2 months? Yes, absolutely. Okay. Now, so yes, it decreased. You're absolutely right about that. Now I'm going to show you the original bands. This is your original policy bands. The midpoint is P0. Okay? But what happened in the last few months is that the demand for Sing dollar has actually decreased. Because the demand for Sing dollar has decreased, okay, so the price of Sing dollar actually falls to P1. So what did MAS do? They made P1, they adjusted the policy band such that P1 is the new midpoint of the policy bands, which means to say that they shifted the policy bands this way, okay, such that P1 is the new midpoint. Sorry. Okay, can you see? So what MAS did was to move the policy bands downwards so that P1 becomes the new center point of the policy bands. So they shifted the policy bands to the current prevailing rate such that the new current prevailing rate is the center point of the midpoint of the new policy bands. Okay, so in actual fact, what are they doing to the policy bands? They're moving the policy bands to the current prevailing rate. So does this give the Sing dollar more room or less room to depreciate? Can you all answer using the chat box? Does this give the Sing dollar more room or less room to depreciate? Yes, it actually gives the Sing dollar more room to depreciate. It doesn't make it depreciate per se, but it gives it more room to depreciate if it depreciates. If it is going to depreciate based on market forces, it gives it more room to do so. Okay, so these are the two things that the MAS did. Alright, so if you want to take a photo of this, you can do so now before I erase this slide. I'm going to move on to a new set of slides already. Okay, so if you want to take a photo now, that now will be a good time before I erase this slide. Okay, is it okay for me to change slides already? Because I have a new set of slides to show you. Okay, so I'm going to erase this and move on to a new set of slides. Okay, so here's the last concept that we are going to cover today, and this last concept we are covering today is called Quantitative Easing, QE. Okay, I'm sure you heard of QE before. QE is pretty complicated, so let's take some time to understand what is Quantitative Easing, or otherwise known as QE. Now first, the history of QE started in 2008 because of the global financial crisis. Just now, based on the graph we saw Federal Reserve cut interest rate, cut until it was zero. And then at zero interest rate, the US economy entered what we call a liquidity trap. Means to say it was no longer possible to reduce interest rates any further in order to encourage greater consumption and investment. Okay, that means to say that we can no longer use buying and selling of government bonds, or rather, we can no longer use buying of government bonds to bring down interest rates any further. So you can't stimulate consumption or stimulate investment by actually cutting interest rates because interest rates were already at zero. Right, so your monetary policy became useless. That's the reason why Federal Reserve had to come up with something creative, which is called QE, Quantitative Easing. Now, what is QE? To understand QE, you need to understand the first part of my lesson very well. And let's do a recap. Now, in monetary policy, in expansionary monetary policy, the central bank goes into the open market and buy what? Here's a test, a quiz. You can use the chat box to answer. In expansionary monetary policy, the central bank goes into the open market and buy what from financial institutions? Okay, not just bonds. You have to be very clear. They buy government bonds. They buy back government bonds from financial institutions from the open market. Okay. Now, when that becomes useless, the US actually decided to do this. They decided that, okay, buying government bonds is not going to help me cut interest rates any further. So since it can't help me cut interest rates any further, I am no longer going to just buy government bonds. I'm going to go in and I'm going to buy all forms of other assets, like corporate bonds, like mortgage-backed securities. Okay? Do you remember what's the difference between a government bond and a corporate bond? Government bond is issued by the government. Corporate bond can be issued by any firm. Okay, giving you the example again. If CapitaLand, okay, were to issue a corporate bond, that would be because, for example, I give you an example. If I'm CapitaLand, if I run CapitaLand, and I wanted to build shopping malls in China, but I don't have enough money to build shopping malls in China, I will say, hey, I want to issue these bonds. Any of you all want to buy bonds from me, I can give you an interest rate of 5%. And if you trust me and you trust that I won't go bankrupt, you will say, okay, I buy your bond. So you give me money. So that is the meaning of corporate bond. So anyone can go and buy corporate bonds from CapitaLand, for example. Okay? So the central bank, Federal Reserve, decided that, okay, since buying back government bonds doesn't help me lower interest rate any further. What I'm going to do is that I'm going to go to the open market. I'm going to buy a series of things. I'm going to buy a bunch of things, more than just government bonds. I'm going to buy corporate bonds. I'm going to buy all kinds of other financial instruments. Hey, for what? And number one, what the central bank or the Federal Reserve wants to do is that it wants to help the sectors that can't get liquidity. That means these sectors, they are doing badly, they want to borrow money, but nobody want to lend them any money. Okay, so the central bank goes ahead and buy up these bonds from them, which is actually lending them money, okay, through these bonds, putting money in their hands. So it actually gives them liquidity, which is money. And then with this extra liquidity, these firms will then use this money to invest, like building shopping malls, for example, building homes, for example. Okay, and when the Federal Reserve does this, it actually boosts confidence in the market. And when it boosts confidence in the market, the stock market will rally. When the stock market rallies, your household's wealth increase because households actually hold some stocks. Okay, a lot of households actually hold some stocks, so they become more wealthy. They will increase consumption. Okay, so all in all, your Federal Reserve, what did they do? Number one, they give liquidity to these trapped sectors, which increases investment. Number two, they demand more for assets, which causes asset prices to go up. Like the stock market will start, the prices will start going up. Households' wealth will start going up. Consumption will start to increase. And when the Federal Reserve does this, it by itself actually boosts confidence, which will cause consumption and investment to increase. Okay, so if you're wondering what is actually the difference between quantitative easing and conventional monetary policy, I'm going to tell you the difference now. Number one, conventional monetary policy, the focus is on buying and selling government bonds because you want to change money supply, because you want to change interest rates. Quantitative easing, you buy government bonds, you also buy a lot of other things that are beyond government bonds. Okay, that is the first difference. The second difference is conventional monetary policy, what does it target? It targets interest rate as a key policy instrument. That is what it focuses on. Conventional monetary policy, it mainly tries to target interest rate, okay, to stimulate consumption, to stimulate investment. Quantitative easing, the focus is I want companies to have money to invest. I want to look at which companies they are unable to find money to invest. So I'm going to help them out. I'm going to buy their financial instruments. I'm going to buy bonds from them, put money in their hands, and then to encourage them to invest. And then that also will help the stock market to recover. Okay? And then households will start to spend money as well. So in fact, quantitative easing, is it monetary policy? The answer is yes. It is actually still monetary policy. Okay, and finally, our last slide today is to look at what is happening now. Okay, I only have a bunch of articles for you to read, and then I'm done for today. So I'm going to paste some links for you to go and read about what US is doing now in terms of unlimited quantitative easing. After you finish reading, okay, if you have no questions, you are free to log off. After finish reading, you got no questions, you're free to log off. If you have questions, turn on your web cameras, okay, turn on your microphones. This is the part where you can turn on your microphones and you can go ahead and ask me questions. Alright, so just give me a minute. I'm going to paste some links for you all to go and read. Stop sharing. Okay, just give me a minute. I'm just going to paste the links for you all to read. This is article number 1. This is article number 2. And this is article number 3. All of these things that I'm showing you right now, it just happened in the last 1 to 2 weeks, which is quite crazy. So a lot of things have happened in the last 1 to 2 weeks. Okay, so please go ahead and read these articles. After you have finished reading these articles, you can turn on your microphones. So I'm going to allow you to turn on your microphones. So allow participants. Yes, you can turn off the micro. You can turn on your microphones yourself to ask any questions that you want to ask. Okay, so go ahead and do that. Read the articles. Got question? Ask. All right. Okay, once you have finished reading, you've got a question to ask me, feel free to go ahead and ask. So just turn on your microphones and go ahead and ask any questions that you all have. Right? Don't type. It's been a very boring day. I've been talking to myself the whole day. It'd be nice to have someone to talk to. Okay, so just turn on your microphones and you've got a question to ask, you can ask. Any questions? Microphones on. Yes, Henry. Yes, so when monetary policy is not effective, then you start using quantitative easing, correct?
So normally during like close to recession, the government won't start with quantitative easing first.
No.
They always start with contractionary.
Correct. So you only do quantitative easing because your monetary policy is useless already. Like you reach zero already, you can't do it any further. Then you switch to quantitative easing. If not, you always start with monetary policy because that one is just changing your interest rates. So changing interest rate, that one is very direct. You will affect consumption investments directly.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, anybody else? Has any other questions? Go ahead and ask. Don't need to be shy. You gotta get used to this. It's a month long of this. You'll start getting used to it. A levels not going away.
Sorry.
Yes.
You mentioned that like quantitative easing has an impact on the stock market. So like what's the relationship between this and the stocks in general?
Okay, so I'm gonna give you an example. Do you think retail malls are going to be affected during this period, like COVID-19 crisis, right? Do you think retail malls are going to be affected? They're going to be affected, right? So let me ask all of you this question now. If you were going to the stock market to buy stocks now, will you want to buy retail firms, retail mall stocks, given that retail firms are going down? I mean, shopping malls that are going down, you wouldn't want to buy, right? So the stock market is going to do very badly. So if, for example, the Federal Reserve goes in and say, okay, I'm going to go and buy bonds from all the shopping malls. Okay, I'm going to buy bonds from them. I'm going to put money in their hands so that they can go and do some spending. So this will actually boost confidence in individuals that, okay, I think these firms are going to be fine. So these firms are going to be fine, then people will start going in to buy these stocks. Like for example, once again, Singapore Airlines is doing very badly right now. I think the stock price, it fell to about less than half. I think less than 1/3 of its original value. Singapore Airlines stock prices fell very, very badly. Now imagine if the Singapore government actually came in and said, okay, we're going to help Singapore Airlines out. It will actually start to boost confidence in Singapore Airlines that there is the potential for them to recover. So it will boost the stock prices for Singapore Airlines. And then if the stock prices start to rise, then people holding on to Singapore Airlines stocks, they will become wealthier.
So it's more about like helping people become more confident in the stock market.
Yes, correct. So in general, if the Federal Reserve steps in to go and intervene and put money in the hands of these firms, their stocks will start to do better, and then overall the stock market will start to do better. You're welcome. Okay, anybody else? Okay, any questions, anyone? Anybody has any questions? Anyone? Okay, if you are like really super shy, you can ask your question later when there's less people around, I suppose, right? Okay, if you have no questions, then you're free to log off for the day. All right, I will see you guys next week. I will announce again when we will. I will tell you on Monday again when we will be doing the diagnostic test review. I think it's been a crazy few days. We have a lot of crazy announcements every day with regards to COVID. Right, so next week we will do the diagnostic test review. I'll let you know the timing that we'll be doing the test review. And as usual, every Monday I will let you all know what the Zoom links are. Okay, the lesson materials can all be found on the learning management system, so you can log on to the learning management system to actually access them. So for those of you who have no questions, you can feel free to log off for the day. Right, for those of you with questions, you can continue staying behind. I will address your questions. Okay.
Mr. Paul,
Yes.
is it recommended to buy stocks like during this period of recession?
If you got extra cash, then yes, you're probably gonna make a bit of money if you buy some stocks. But the problem with buying stocks is that you don't know which companies are gonna go absolutely bankrupt. So if you buy the wrong companies and these companies end up going bankrupt, right, then die. Your money goes to zero. So the thing to always pay attention to buying stocks during this period is to buy the companies that you know will never ever die. Okay, the blue chip companies that you know will never ever die, like your DPS, Google, these kind of stocks.
So what kind of stocks should I buy? Like should I like REITs or
I don't know. I wouldn't go into REITs. I think REITs are very risky. You don't know what the government is, what kind of laws the government is going to implement. There has been a lot of backlash against these REITs because of the way that they are said to bully actually tenants. Yeah, in terms of unfair contractual obligations. So that one I'm very mindful lah. So I wouldn't put money into REITs lah if you were asking me.
okay? Thank you.
Welcome. Okay, contractionary monetary policy improves balance of payments because when you cut AD, real national income falls. When real national income falls, people have less money. When people have less money, they cut back on buying goods and services. When they cut back on buying goods and services, that includes cutting back on buying imported goods. So when there is less spending on imported goods, import expenditure will fall. So when import expenditure fall, your current account actually improves. So if your current account improves, then your balance of payments will improve. So that is how contractionary monetary policy actually improves your balance of payments. Yes, absolutely. No problem. Bye bye. See you.